Morning, everybody. On today's agenda, we have 7 nominations. We'll vote on Kurt Wall, Kurt Almy, Leslie Murphy, Janine Pirro, Eric Siebert, and Nicholas Chase and Daniel Rosen. That's all for U.S. attorneys. I think they're highly qualified nominees. 2 of these nominees have received blue slips from 4 Democratic senators. So I thank Senator Klobuchar, Senator Smith, Kane, and Warner for working to select qualified nominees. Their efforts are a testament to the way this process should work. I look forward to supporting them and encourage my colleagues to do the same. We'll also have the following 3 bills listed to be voted on. 1023, the Trace Act. 1029, the Opioid Overdose Data Collection Enhancement Act. And thirdly, the acronym that we call the Child Act of 2025. The 3 bills are part of a bipartisan effort tackling crime and protecting vulnerable populations. Each equips law enforcement and other decision makers with critical information either about the last known locations for missing persons, hotspots for drug overdoses, or criminal background of contractors responsible for taking care of children. I want to thank Ranking Member Durbin and his entire staff for working with me to put together this agenda. I'd also like to thank the members of the committee for collaborating on these public safety bills. Before we get to the agenda, I'd like to say a few words about last week's meeting and to share my perspective. At the beginning of last week's markup, I announced, and I quote myself, "If we haven't voted before 10:30, I'll plan to call to the vote on all nominations at that time. If people wish to speak after that time, I will stay as long as needed for their remarks." End of my quote from last week. I set this time for last week's vote because of conflicts, including a markup in another very important committee. I think for most people that was the Appropriations Committee. My intention was to allow all of my colleagues to give their remarks either before the vote or after the vote. So then you can see why I promised at the very beginning of the meeting to stay as long as necessary so everyone, both Republicans and Democrats, could be heard on the nominations. My colleagues didn't take me up on that offer. Instead, I was surprised with a motion that was not on the agenda and not previewed in advance of the meeting. And when I tried to call the vote, some of my colleagues accused me of not allowing them to speak, and they left the room instead of allowing the vote to proceed and then taking as much time as they needed afterwards, as I said I promised them I'd do, to say everything that they wanted to say on the nominees. This may have been the result of miscommunicated intentions between our sides, but this isn't a good way for the committee to operate, and it's now how I like to have things work in this committee. Since last week's meeting, my staff has had a productive conversation with the Democratic staff. We've heard each other's concerns, and I believe we both agree that we want the committee to run well, and that's definitely better than last week. I think we can work together to make sure this happens. For those who haven't read them, under the Senate rules, the chairman can end debate with a majority vote of a majority president in the committee. This has been used by chairmen of both sides on multiple occasions and is always controversial when that vote would be put forth. We can argue about whether this instance or that instance was justified or not, but I don't think that that would be productive. It's unsurprising that Republicans and Democrats both tend to think that in our separate ways that we're justified when our side takes that procedure of forcing a vote. The important point is, I agree this shouldn't be a common practice, and I don't intend to use it unless the consideration of the nominee is being unfairly obstructed. So, moving forward, I'll work with the ranking member to ensure that we allocate sufficient time for debate. I'll ask the ranking member to work with me to ensure that we can navigate the Senate calendar and the Senate 2-hour rule to ensure that we can vote on nominees when they're on the agenda. As chairman, I try to be fair to all members of the committee, even during controversial nominations. And we have plenty of them and have had plenty of them as well. In February, during a markup on Director Patel of the FBI, I held the meeting open and sat here in silence for an extended period of time as a courtesy as an example to Senator Schiff so that he could arrive in time to speak in the opposition to the nomination. I look forward to working with the ranking member and my colleagues to ensure that we can allow for robust debate in committee while also ensuring nominees receive a vote when they're ready for consideration by the committee. Senator Durbin.